I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby here with Emmy magnate Robert Sterne, Casting Director on The Crown. First of all, Robert, congratulations on your latest Emmy nomination.
Thank you very much indeed.
That's very exciting. I wonder if a staggering 14 Emmy nominations later, does this ever get old for you?
No, not at all. It's like a total thrill. It's very exciting. It's very good. It's the show's being really well represented this year across the for the Emmys, and it's just really exciting that we're in season 4 of a show that's been going for a long time, and it's still attracting the attention that it's attracting, and going from strength to strength.
Yeah, you're 100% right. This does not happen very often where a show in its 4th season, usually the Emmy voters tend to kind of move on to new things, but The Crown season 4, I've not met a person yet who has said that this is not the best season of the show so far.
I think it's great. It does keep reinventing itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that reinvention that happens every 2 years is so key, obviously, to the show's success. And a lot of that has to do with your work, which we will drill down into a little later. But I think, a huge part of the success of this show, this season in particular, was the team stuck the landing for a very highly anticipated era, the 1980s. Many of us, I should say, remember it pretty well. And a lot of that had to do with Emma Corrin and Gillian Anderson, who respectively played Diana and Thatcher. So I just wonder, before we get into specifics, was the pressure on to find, if you get one thing wrong with people that we're so familiar with, and the whole show falls apart.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, the pressure was definitely on, and we were really excited about getting to the 80s period. We knew it was coming. We knew that the young Diana was going to be kind of a major event. No, it was very exciting to just get started on it, and the pressure was on to find somebody who was totally amazing for that part.
Yeah, so let's talk about Emma Corrin, because I just think her performance, it was just so breathtaking in how beautifully she was able to capture the essence of the people's princess. Could you talk us through the process of casting her, and perhaps maybe also that light bulb moment when you realized that you had found your Diana, your young Diana?
Yeah, I think the thing is that we knew that we had to find the young version of the character. So we had to find Diana when she was at the kind of kindergarten teacher stage. So we weren't looking for the kind of, it wasn't necessarily the great iconic character that we know of her in her 30s when she became this kind of world figure. So it was somebody who could start us off the journey and then go through the various complexities of her personal life to get to start, being launched onto the world stage. So it was a very particular type of person. But it was also somebody who, although she was very young, she's a teenager when we first meet her, who also, had to be a real kind of star, had to have some steel in her too.
Yeah.
And I do remember Peter Morgan, the writer of it, saying, look, you've got to remember, she was a real legend in her own family and in her own school. And as a child, she had been the star at school. Everybody had said she's got great things, a great future ahead of her. And I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about the teenager with the head to one side and the kind of shy thing. I think, no, you need somebody with splinters of real steel and determination in her. And we knew that the part was going to go across this 10-year period. So she had to go on a massive journey, basically. So we just, started looking, and we saw lots and lots of people. It was great because we had no pressure on us to find a star name necessarily to play that part. We could, but it was open to us to make a completely new discovery if we wanted to or could. So it was completely open playing field. And we saw hundreds of people. We looked all over. We went to, we looked around, sixth form colleges of schools over here. We saw Australian actors. We saw American actors. We just had a moment to just see who was the best person in the world that we could find, which was great and a kind of amazing challenge. And then with Emma, I've told this story before, but Emma had actually read the part when she'd come in as a reader when we were auditioning for Camilla Parker Bowles the previous season. We needed somebody to come in and read opposite her as Diana, because we needed a young teenager to read in that part. And it wasn't great when I was doing it, which I normally do. So, and she had been the person who'd come in. And I remember when she came in, we were all just aware that everybody in the room was really watching this person who was doing the reading and thinking, so that kind of sowed the seeds of, look, we've got to explore this properly when the time came. And yeah, no, when Emma came in, she came in and she just had an amazing connection with the character. She loved doing it. There was a kind of joy that she had in doing it. And we saw her quite a few times for it because we couldn't believe our eyes, and we had to make sure that, you know, it was what we were seeing was real, and that she could maintain it. And sure enough, she did. It was the connection with the character. It was the sheer pleasure of it, the understanding of the complexities that she had that was just, you know, stood out. And it became very clear that she was absolutely exceptional. And then she's just has gone from strength to strength with it through the whole process. Yeah, it is a remarkable performance that she gives.
It really is. And when you see Emma on the street or doing an interview, she doesn't look like Diana. She doesn't really talk like her. And yet you found something in her that really, I mean, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I honestly believe it's just one of the best renditions of Diana that I've ever seen. And the same goes for Thatcher, because that's another one where you think, look, you could just become a mimic artist here. You could put some prosthetics on and you could be really shrill. But I know that you're on the record as saying you knew that this had to be Gillian Anderson. Like, this is Dana Scully from the X-Files 20 years ago. And now she's playing, you know, an iconic political, very divisive figure. Talk us through that choice. Because, I mean, when you talk about Gillian Anderson as Thatcher now, people are going to be saying, that's the best Thatcher we've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think she is. She was just remarkable. I mean, we did know from the, I mean, it was a list of one when we started thinking about it, because Nina Gold and I had worked together on this show for, you know, many years, had done, you know, we'd worked on various projects that involved Gillian, and we'd seen just the range of her work. She's an incredibly amazing character actress who goes into forensic detail about getting characters that are so far away from herself completely right. And that's what we needed in this case. We had done a couple of jobs with her where she'd played such completely different characters that were unrecognizable from each other, and with such detail. And we just knew that if she was available and free, we'd be incredibly lucky to have her. And it worked out. But yeah, she disappears into her roles with such detail that it's totally remarkable.
It really is. And I mean, what luck, I guess, that she was available for the role. You really scored with both of those actors. But I must say, another actor that I haven't seen a lot of talk about, Josh O'Connor, and I would love to kind of delve a bit more into that choice, because that's my favorite casting choice, to be honest. I think his performance as Charles is so unique and interesting, and it's not readily apparent when you see Josh that he'd be perfect for the role, but he really delivers. I just wonder, what did you see in him that sold it for you?
Again, you know, it's the fact that you want people who can disappear into their characters and do the detailed work. You're not interested, you know, you don't want big, broad sweeps, big impersonations of these people. It's very important that they're really sophisticated actors who can find, you know, do a 360-degree version of it, who can find the kind of, you know, the good sides and the bad sides. I mean, that's a very obvious thing to say, but just to have a complexity when they're approaching their characters and do it in great detail. There's a wealth of research there. These people are real life people in all their complexity. And there's a lot to dive into and get hold of there. And you want somebody who you believe is going to, you know, run with all of that and make the most of it. I mean, with Josh, we'd seen him in that. I mean, we had known Josh previously as he'd been coming up through the, you know, in his acting. But he did that performance in God's Own Country, which is kind of the opposite of Charles in many ways, but it's very different from him. And if you can see that somebody can really transform themselves in that way, then, you know, you think you're probably onto something. It took quite a while to get Josh interested in it. It wasn't the part that he was particularly interested in doing when we first approached him. I don't know what it was. He was doing other things or whatever, or just the whole thing of playing it wasn't his obvious next step in his own mind. But when we started showing him Peter started showing him bits of material, bits of the script and the way they were approaching this character. And again, that it was such a massive journey that Charles has to go on across the 2 years that he was doing it. And then, I don't know, a kind of light switch went on with Josh, and he suddenly saw how fascinating this man was and how to play it. And then he kind of turned his incredible talent towards it. And then, you know, we were off. But yeah, he's wonderful in it.
Yeah. Like, it kind of sounds kind of slightly strange, but his performance changed my perception of Prince Charles as a person. And I think I've heard a lot of people say that to me, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of people in this show, like someone like myself who's not terribly interested in the royal family, don't really care about the royal family that much, but this show, I really care about these characters. And I think the casting is key to that. And this is,
I think it's a lot to do with the writing.
I think the writing helps because it's really compelling. Yeah.
Incredible writing about these relationships between these people who you think you know or you know in some kind of shape or form.
That's right.
And then the way it's written is amazing.
It's so fascinating. But it brings me to this. The Crown is so unique, obviously because the cast is replaced every 2 seasons as the royal family age and evolve. Has that been one of the most challenging and daunting aspects of your professional career today? Like, it looks harder than maybe what it is. I don't know. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it's unique. I've never been in an experience where every 2 years you have to do it again. And also, when it goes well the first time, you think, okay, we've set the bar really high, and people have run with it. And then there's a moment when there's a read through of the new season, and the new lot all sit round a table, and you've got a new family sitting around there, and you're sitting there thinking, you know, what's going to happen when, you know, all these people start working with each other. No, I mean, it's a unique challenge. It's a brilliant challenge though, because you've got so much to go on, because these set of relationships have been set up, and then it's just doing it again, and you find people to kind of shed a new light on it in different ways. I'm pleased that it happens. I'm pleased that, I mean, from the start, they decided from the very beginnings of talking about this project, that they weren't going to just have the same actors in increasing amounts of heavy makeup going through the decades, that as, you know, people change in their life in 10 years on or 20 years on, because every season is 10 years, that they do become new people. People do, you know, people change. And I think that works very well. But yeah, the pressure's certainly on. But the actors like it, because when they're doing it, you know, the bar has been set by the previous person. And it's a challenge, isn't it? You take the baton on from the last person. You said, well, they've had a stab at it. How did they do? What can we now do with it? It's daunting for the actors. I mean, it's more daunting from the actors than it is for the casting people. I mean, I'm pretty daunted by it, but the actors who have to actually sit down and then do it and make it their own. But they, you know, it's an attractive part of doing the job, I think, for people.
I think it's an attractive thing for an audience as well, because it just makes it so much more interesting and different and unusual that we get to watch different actors take on these characters in their own way. And yet there's still this really lovely continuity throughout all of the seasons. I wonder if, can you point to a particular character or actor that was the most difficult to replace, or it took the longest for you to find the right person to pick up the baton?
It was hard. I mean, they're all, you know, you have to sit down and think really long and hard about each of them. I mean, I don't think there's any of them that was just, oh, well, it's obvious necessarily. I mean, I think maybe the Queen. I mean, once Claire Foy had set up her way of doing it and the way of telling the story of the Queen, like who this version of the Queen was, but nobody knows what the Queen's really like. She's completely unknown. So this construct, this version of her that Claire set up as basically an ordinary woman who is put in extraordinary circumstances, that her longing for her life, in the way it's told in this program, is that she would have quite liked to have a different existence, but this set of circumstances was thrust on her. And the way that Claire conveyed that was really brilliant. I mean, she kind of defined it in that way. And then it was about finding people. Like, we don't play the grandeur of the Queen or the formality of the Queen. It's played about the family relationships and how that woman has to deal with those set of circumstances. And I think it became that those qualities that Claire had, Olivia really seemed to be able to run with as well. There's an accessibility to her in terms of family relationships and things that really works. And again, moving on to Imelda Staunton, who we've got now, she's just so brilliant at all of that. So I think that element of the way the Queen is portrayed works well with those three actors. I think that that makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah, you're right. You know, when season 2 finished and we were about to embark on season 3, I had this slight bias, like, no, I don't think I'm ready to let go of these actors. I'm not going to like this. It literally took me like 3 minutes, and I'm like, oh my God, Olivia Colman's amazing, and you just kind of go with it because they're all so wonderful. I wonder if that's going to happen for season 5. Like, what can you tell us? Given we know who most of the actors are going to be in season 5, I'm looking forward to seeing Elizabeth Debicki, for example, another Aussie. Are you pretty blown away with what the final cast have done so far on the show, or are going to be doing?
Well, we're kind of in the thick of it right now. So they've started filming, so we've got kind of a lot of the kind of key people together. I'm pretty blown away by it. I think everybody's in for a treat. And I'm really excited by it. It's good.
Oh, I can't wait. One general question I have for you, something I always wonder is, you see so many actors, hundreds of them, day in, day out, who are auditioning and trying to stand out from the pack. Do you have a list in your head when maybe actors come to you for advice? Like, what are really some real do's and don'ts that you have when you want to tell actors you should be doing this and maybe not be doing this?
I don't know. I mean, I think everybody approaches it in their own way. I don't think you could say to people, I think I'm in a position to say, do this and do that. What you're dealing with is people coming in and bringing their talent and their creativity, and you need to provide them with an environment in which they can do that and share that in a way that's easiest for them and the most comfortable way for them to share what they bring for it. I think it's a mistake to impose on people, say you should do this and should do that. I think we've got to be open to whatever's unique and remarkable about what people are bringing into the room and just facilitate that rather than saying, these are the do's and don'ts. I mean, the only kind of do's or don'ts, the only kind of one thing that because I've started off as an actor, and one thing that somebody said to me was, when you go for an audition, and you're reading a scene, always make choices that you find are interesting. Because if you find them interesting and they switch you on, it's likely that they will for the people watching you. You don't want to necessarily read a script and say, what they're after is A, B, and C. That's straightforward. I'll just give them what I think that they're after. I think it's better to see what your reaction is to it and what you find interesting about it and bring that to the table rather than try and kind of preempt or pre-understand, pre-read the situation. I think you get the most interesting readings that way.
Yeah,
people come in with really genius responses to things that you haven't, thought of. It's like Emma comes in and the things that she's thought about the character, the way that her kind of innate response to it is what's the most fascinating thing. So you don't want to bring a whole kind of set of do's and don'ts that's going to squash that or restrict that in any way. It's about trying to let people fly with it.
Yeah, that's great advice, because you're looking for that light behind their eyes, that authenticity that they're going for. That is fascinating.
And this in The Crown as well, it's such a, they're playing real life people.
Yeah.
And it's always fascinating to see who responds to which character in the way that they do. And you'll have people who come and you think, well, I don't know. Like with Erin, who plays Princess Anne.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was going to have some massive connection to Princess Anne when I'd seen her in an amazing play where she'd played this American character and really disappeared into it. But when she came in for it, the character's a world away from Erin, but she had watched loads of YouTube videos. She came in, she said, I bloody love this woman. I've got a connection with, and you go, okay, well, what do you want to do with it? Let's run with that. Let's see what see what you think. And then she completely flew. But you can't know who's going to make what connection with which part. And sometimes with that, sometimes you'll bring in somebody for one part in it, and you'll think, oh, no, they might respond. I've got this wrong here. They might respond better to this other character. And then they will, it'll just be the connections that they make with the writing, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad you brought up Erin. That voice that she does is just extraordinary. And she's so talented. Robert, you've got 4 Emmys already. Perhaps make some room for a 5th. I don't want to jinx it. I have a feeling that could happen for you again. I hope it does. Thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Great to see you. Thanks very much.